Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show a nice game played between Raul Capablanca and Rudolf Spielmann. This was played in New York International Masters Tournament in 1927. Let's check out the game. Capablanca starts with d4, d5, knight f3 and e6, c4 and knight d7. We have the queen's gambit declined, knight to c3, knight gf6, bishop g5 and bishop b4. The Ragozin defense is on the board. C takes d5 and e takes d5. Queen a4. There is no knight c6 defending the bishop on b4, and black captures here. So he's given up the bishop pair and b into c3, and we see that white will have quite a solid structure in the center. This b pawn has now come towards the center to c3, and white will play e3 later on and will have a very solid structure. Black castles and e3, and the dark squared bishop for white is already outside the cage of the pawn, so that's something positive. c5, challenging the strong center. Of course, white does not want to capture. Bishop d3 developing, and c4, just pushing the bishop back. Black could have maintained the tension. That was certainly possible. That was an idea. Perhaps go something like b6 or knight b6. Many moves are possible. Rook e8 was possible. There was no need to immediately resolve the tension, but it's okay. Bishop c2 and queen a7. White castles getting out of the x-ray of the queen. a6. Of course, the idea is b5 and getting some time on the black queen, the white queen. Rook f2 e1, lining the the rook against the queen. Maybe e4 could be a threat later on. And queen e6, just getting out of the pin. A little better way to deal with it would have been 8-6, pushing the bishop back, and then even g5. There is quite some control over the e4 square, so white can't get a breakthrough right now, so it's okay to push on the flank. Bishop g3 and knight e4. This would be fine. If white ever captures, then white will lose the bishop pair, and the ideas of f5 are also possible here. Later on b5 can come to hit the queen, and there would be a little closed position with the pawn structure a little closed. The two bishops for white will not be as strong as they could be on an open board. This would have been quite reasonable for black. Queen a6 is not the most accurate. It gives some initiative to white. Knight d2 first, preparing a thrust on e4, b5, getting time on the queen, and queen a5. The queen could infiltrate inside black's camp at some point. Knight e4 now. This is a bit different than when the knight was on f3, the bishop on g3, and then knight e4 was a bit stronger for black. Knight into e4 and d into e4. This e4 pawn could be a target. The bishop is already looking at it. a4, challenging the expansion on the queen side by black. And queen d5. This was a way to counterattack the bishop, but it's not good enough because simply a into b5. The a6 pawn is pinned, and if queen into b5, then queen into b5 again, the a6 pawn is pinned, so you will lose the rook on a8 after you recapture the queen. But of course, Spielmann thought he can just grab a piece, but that's not good enough. If queen e6, going back, then bishop f4, just guarding against rook b8, and f5 and bishop to c7. The threat is possible. Even pushing b6 is an idea, creating a passed pawn. But queen into g5 was played, and this allows bishop into e4 first, gaining time on the rook, and after rook into rook b8, a into b6, and there's a passed pawn on a6 for white, and it's certainly worth the piece. And white in fact has 3 pawns for the piece. Rook b5 first, moving the queen, but queen c7. The dark squares are quite weak for black. Knight b6, guarding a8, but a7 anyway. Bishop h3. trying to free up some, activate some pieces, free up some squares, open the rook's defense along the 8th rank, and also creating a mate threat should the bishop on e4 ever move. But it's alright. Rook eb1, just trying to exchange some pieces, getting rooks on open files. Rook into b1, rook into b1, and f5. Simply bishop f3 is enough. You have to guard g2, and that's exactly what Capablanca does. And f4 even. Here, simply e into f4 by Capablanca, and Rudolf Spielmann resigned because there really isn't nothing more to be done, because if rook into f4, trying to get some initiative along the white king side, simply rook into b6. And there is no time to capture on f3 because a8 will be queen with check and it will connect with the rook as well. Rook b8 is also a threat, so rook will have to go back to f8 and queen c4 check will push the king away, and rook b8. This is deadly. So after e into f4, black simply resigned, and that's how we see the power of a passed pawn. And sometimes it's so the placement of a pawn is crucial in determining how strong it will be, and whether sometimes it's just worth a lot more than a piece. And that's what we see in this game, a very clean victory by Capablanca. Well, thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon for the next game.